Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Daze, and you're about to watch Thorin rant for about 3 hours.
CS.MONEY's Black Friday sale is still on for about the next 6 hours as of the time of this video being published, roughly. You can get up to 40% top-up bonus instead of the typical 20, which is usually there. If you check out the code on the screen, the first person to figure out what the correct promo code is and go to the link on the screen can potentially win skins worth up to $150. The little secret is on the code. Now, in terms of Evil Geniuses, the former NRG squad, a team that added, obviously, Stanislaw right around, I think his first event was ESL 1 Cologne. The last event with DAPS was ESL Pro League. Obviously, they went from being a consistent top 4 team to a team that then could make finals, could obviously win tournaments, and won a couple of big titles, made top 4 at the major. Seemed like a team on an up and up and up trajectory to New York. And then they had the disastrous Malmo. So they came top 4 at the major, big time stuff, only lost to Astralis, give them a great game. Won ESL New York, beating Astralis twice, including a best of 5, almost 3-0'd that, almost 5-0'd Astralis in the tournament. Then they had the DreamHack Malmo. They were supposed to come in and win the tournament. They dropped right down, they came last place. Then they went to Star Ladder in Turkey. They won the tournament, big double limb tournament, beat a lot of good teams. Then they had this run of 2 tournaments in China that were absolutely disastrous. They went to IEM Beijing, they only finished 5th to 6th, didn't even make it out of the group, lost to FaZe twice, the brand new FaZe team. Then they went to the CSGO Asia Championship, a tournament that on paper they should win all day long. They didn't even make top 4 or the final, they finished 5th to 6th. Now, I have never seen a team with as high a ceiling and so many good qualities about them right now that can be this bad as well, that can not even make top 4, not even have to lose to a top team, can even come last on rare occasions. I don't think I've ever seen a team that had that championship form and that ridiculously low abasement in terms of in competitive eras, not when everyone's just shitting the scene. Admittedly, outside of Astralis, there are a lot of weak or not quite complete teams. So you have to start initially with the personnel of the team, the DNA of the team, who they are as a squad, what they try to be. They're a gunfighting team. They are a brawling team. They are a team who try to use their skill to match you, overpower you. They're not winning just with smart positioning. They're not winning tactically. They're not winning by having some next level anti-strats necessarily, except for some rare occasions. So the problem I have is, it's a very NA style of play. It's a style of play Dazed would love. It's a style that made Team Liquid one of the best in the world. Although Team Liquid had a little bit more tactically and sometimes had some players, Naf and Elijah, I would say, do play a bit smarter. The problem is, when you have the skill edge and the right players hitting hard, this style will work. It'll look great. You'll look like you're always in a game with anyone. You can beat anyone on any map. You can 2-0 anyone. The problem is, this lineup on paper should be a top 3 most skilled lineup in the world. I don't think that's actually happening, though. I think actually, after the initial form, it's been kind of deceptive how strong they are on paper, because I actually don't think that they are that good. In the game, the big problem is this. In theory, on paper, they're really, really skilled across the board, all 5 positions. Like Team Liquid were actually manifested in the summer, but doesn't as much now. The problem is, game in and game out, in terms of everyday level, a bunch of these guys aren't anywhere near what the name suggests or their peak suggests. So first and foremost, the idea that this is one of the most skilled lineups in terms of distribution, like Team Liquid, was supposed to come with the angle that in theory anyone could be the MVP. Like, yes, obviously Elijah was mainly the MVP in Team Liquid, but obviously it could be enough for a tournament, and it absolutely could be Twists, right? Sure, it's unlikely to be the others as much, but they also have potential. If Stewie had an amazing entry tournament, or Nitro just had a Glaive-esque tournament where you frag out, it could happen, right? In this team, that hasn't really happened since Stanislaw came, and quite frankly, it isn't going to. And even worse, when I said Elijah could be the MVP and probably will be, yeah, that's ideal, but it doesn't have to happen. There's lots of variants as to who it can be. If you're looking at Evil Geniuses, they have one player who has to be the best on their team if they want to be at their best and be the true championship form, and that is Breezy, the guy who was one of the best players in the world only a couple of months ago, but quite frankly has had some absolute stinker tournaments recently, particularly the Chinese ones, and anytime he not only doesn't have a great game, but has a bad game, it's pretty much a guaranteed loss for the guys from EG, it feels like, and against seemingly everyone. So it shows you how valuable he is as a player. Makes sense, very consistent game normally, and an all-around game. Then you got to look at Ethan. When they were having their sick form, Ethan actually wasn't statistically very good. He was kind of one of the weaker elements in the team. The problem is he's had a couple of big series and a couple of like 1.5 big tournaments recently. He even got the MVP for some people from Star Series. I think I personally gave it to Cirque, but fair enough. It was debatable. The problem is, When Ethan carries, I haven't looked into this specifically enough to figure out all the reasons why, but it seems to me like when he's carrying, it's like back in the day when Exist top frags in someone like Nip. You're probably losing that game, I'm afraid. When Ethan carries, it just doesn't translate into massive impact and win you the game. He just gets kills. He looks good. He doesn't underperform. The others underperform. And you don't particularly win the tournament when that's happening. Then you go to my man Sturk. I think Cirque. I do think Cirque's made some strides, but I also think he's only going to have certain tournaments where he's fully on. Otherwise, he's a very streaky player. Look at his style of play. Look at him, Wardell, Henny. Like, Henny's more ridiculous because he doesn't have the same fragging. But these are players where their style of firing, listen, Simple can do that. Not a lot of other humans can get away with that kind of ridiculously fast firing speed and constantly taking flicks, never setting up a shot, never using an angle in your favour, never using patience, etc. He's just not that type of opera at the moment, and so it makes him very, very streaky. If he hits like a motherfucker. If he doesn't, he can look fairly lackluster and he gets out of games easily and he has one of the most expensive guns in the era, no less, of the Krieg, which in theory is way more value for money, right? Then you go and look, the other two players are a big problem in this team. Stanislaw is not entirely a problem, but I'll say this. He is absolutely someone where the stats don't live up to his rep. His rep is one of the better fragging in-game leaders, like, you know, can go head-to-head with even some good players who aren't IGLs and frag with them. Now, here's the thing. Inside the server, the eye test shows you that does happen sometimes. Ignore the stats. You see impact. Sometimes he'll just be an entry when he needs to be. He'll back someone up. He'll go and do a big play when they seem stuck in a rut. And it can work. It actually reminds me somewhat of when Glaive was in the Kirby Astralis. That's kind of what Glaive would do. The stats wouldn't be that good, but you'd look in game and you'd be like, what a baller, getting that entry there and rushing through this smoke and getting this key kill here or this P250 kill here. And you felt like he must be having good stats. He's a pretty good fragger for in-game leader. And then you look at his stats, they weren't that good back then. This is pre-2018, of course. So Stanislaw, in theory, good fragging in-game leader. Not in terms of actual stats, though. He's not showing up in that sense. In fact, you'd probably be shocked if you saw some of the stats he had in terms of kills per round at some of these tournaments. Go look it up if you want to see. Then finally, we have one guy left. Now, Tarek is someone where in Optic, in Cloud9 at times, he was one of the best players. He was one of the big hitters. He could IGL and frag, or he could just be the fragger. He obviously had an all-round game once upon a time, was actually a decent opera in Optic. Tarek in this team, since Stanislaw joined, he only really had the first couple of tournaments were good. After that, he has been, I have to say, I like the guy. I even liked his game. Straight up whack. Like, I'm talking really bad at times. Some absolute nightmare games. And so he hasn't really brought much to the team in the last few tournaments. I think he's actually been a big deficit. Then you've got to go beyond the team and start looking at things like, where do they choose to play? How do they dictate the veto? There's one of my big problems. Because they came to power thrashing everyone on the likes of Dust to an Inferno, the most played maps in the scene, they're loving thinking what Astralis used to think, which is we pick Nuke and then Team Liquid picks Inferno. Awesome, we get our two best maps. The problem is, yes, EG was getting what on paper, the eye test, paper a few months ago, the eye test now in the server tells you are their two best maps. And certainly they can win those maps if their players are on, and they can beat anyone 2-0 in theory. That's fucking huge, right? Beating teams 2-0. That's what you always say. Thorin's a great hallmark of a great team, a potential like dynasty team, an era team. Yeah, but here's the problem. Because of those two maps, they can also lose to a lot of teams 2-0, and they can lose when they pick one of those as one of their maps, particularly Dust 2, to a lot of teams, and therefore they can lose series, and they can lose series 2-0 as they have done a number of times now, which is kind of whack for a team that can win tournaments, right? So my biggest problem with their map pool starts with the idea that they always go into their key strengths, but also that they ignore the depth and the width of the map pool. Like, I think they should be flexing that veto way more often against teams that have very weak, very shallow and small, narrow map pools. If one of those teams is good on Dust 2 and Inferno, but they're not on the other ones, forget Dust 2 and Inferno. Emphasize Nuke when they don't play. Emphasize Train when they don't have a great CT side. Play that. Occasionally play some more Mirage even. I'm a bit more touch and go on that one personally. I get that Overpass just hasn't fit the Stanislaw era. That was more of a DAPS era. They've only really beaten the bad teams on that as far as I'm concerned, or lesser teams with much bigger skill disparity between them and them. Don't keep accepting every Dust 2 and Inferno. If it just comes to Dust 2 and Inferno, like it's right for you to pick Inferno, then they pick Dust 2, that's a gamble I don't mind. But what kills me is the strength on Dust 2 and Inferno will cost you if you go into it too much. Like, I like, for example, when they played Nip at ECS, they didn't pick Inferno. They went to Nuke. Great choice. They would have potentially been in a lot more trouble if they hadn't have. One other issue, they don't, for whatever reason, travel well. So if they go to Europe, they can be up and down, they can be good. Obviously, they still won the Star Ladder tournament. They were good at the Berlin Major. They're really good on domestic soil, home soil. That's pretty classic for NA teams. When they've gone as far afield as China, it's looked terrible thus far. And I would suspect that's the food difference, the culture clash, the sleeping, maybe even be able to use the internet as much. There's all sorts of reasons as to why. So there's a lot of factors here that aren't really matching up with some of the great teams with the consistency, other players you can rely upon, ability to go elsewhere strategically. Like, they have some of these in terms of potential, but they're not using it very much in my opinion. So in terms of prognosticating what's next for Evil Geniuses, I think from the championship form you've seen, they should still win another trophy, a few more trophies. They look like a team that can hit championship form, and certainly they're very good on the most played maps and they can win. But those look like they're going to be one-offs. The problem they have is when they don't win, they don't come second, or they don't come top 3 always, or top 4. They're going to have and have had a bunch of 5th to 8th type placings when they have bad events. They can even obviously have the odd screamer where they finish really badly if they face the wrong opponent that they don't know or haven't prepared for and are expecting to go further in a tournament and arrive jet lagged, etc. I hope personally Breezy returns to the stellar form of 2 months ago, in which case they can level this out a bit and start winning those championships again. Tarek cannot be this bad. Ethan at the moment being good hasn't meant that much. Hopefully he can stay good and then Tarek can retain his level, or Breeze can get better again. I think overall, they're a team that still have strengths and unique elements to them as a team, but they also have some aspects that are a little bit deceptive and certainly erratic. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Dane Cuskley, Dean Tanglis, Chi Mao, JDubs, Mohammed, Alabdul, Razzaq, NateDOhDoubleG, Patrick Ribeiro, Tobias Bernasconi, Who the Fuck is Viathan, and special thanks always goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Would you like to ask me a question for my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers for upcoming content that I've got? Do you want to take part in a discussion with me? Well, if you would like any of these perks or to support my work, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.